Uh, if I talk about your teaching journey, so you have almost like done teaching throughout your career, mostly.
Yeah, even as a vice chancellor, I insisted on taking a
Hmm.
class, and
Right.
because you understand the youth,
Hmm.
you also have the pulse of the students, and you're not distanced by the students, and students don't fear your your office.
Hmm.
That fear of the office has to go away from the students. Only then you can be an effective leader.
Right. Right. So, and you have also like kind taught all type of subjects and almost like all subjects
Oh
in your
yes.
teaching career. Right. So how difficult it was
I
for
mean,
you and
at least about 25 subjects. I moved from one subject to another, and at least a dozen of the subjects are the ones which I didn't study myself.
okay, so how exactly you managed to teach all those subjects? And I
I
mean,
think
like,
that's yeah, that's where you learn what is required by a student to prepare himself for tomorrow. That you prepared yourself, you unlearned some of the things, you relearned, you learned newer things, you understood, you related, and then you sort of uh, examine the process in which you did that and help the students learn that technique or practice that technique. See, and every student has a different style of learning, and it's very important that you recognize that style of learning and allow students to learn in their own styles, at their own pace. If you are doing a sage on the stage of lecturing type of pedagogy, you will have very little, flexibility to try different techniques. The least of them is uh, a flipped classroom, for example, where students study, come back to the class, study on their own, and come back to the class, and then you make sure that they're all on the same page. Because some of them would have understood 20%, some of them would have understood 80%, some of them would have wrongly understood and thinking that they are at 80%. I think you have to bring all of them on the same page. And this is a process which is very dynamic in a classroom. The teacher has to be dynamic, teacher has to be very receptive, teacher has to be able to recognize those differences and sort it out for the sake of the students. I think that's something which we very rarely practice in our day-to-day classrooms. While there is a push, and a lot of teachers, do a couple of flipped classrooms occasionally. Uh, in some sense, everybody is familiar with the technique, but it's not easy to practice. So flipped classroom is only one of these active learning techniques where student leads the learning process. It could be collaborative learning, it could be problem-based learning, it could be project-based learning, it could be something which is field trip-based learning, experiential learning. I think that's what teachers must practice.
okay, and according to you, what is that one thing teacher must be aware of?
The most important thing teacher must be aware of is uh, where the student is, because you are trying to bring the student to a particular place in space, time, and knowledge. And if you don't know where he is, how can you bring him there? So in that sense, it's obviously it's a given that teacher knows where he wants to bring all his students. That means he knows his subject. This is a given. This is just you don't have to reiterate it, and that does not become the most important thing. You are a teacher, though you have decided. The society has decided. You know where you want to bring the teachers. You bring your students to what level you want to bring your students to. That being given, the second most important thing is that you need to recognize where your students are, because it's your responsibility to bring each one of your students to that level or to that understanding, to the outcome you have desired. And you will have to work towards that on every student to the best of your abilities and the resources available to you. The idea is you have to make sure every 100% of your students reach there, which is impossible. But in an environment where the percentage is as low as 5 to 10% for the students who really learn inside the classroom, which you really must re-examine your pedagogy and make sure that more and more students are attaining the outcome you are desiring. From where they learn is immaterial as long as they learn. If the student is finding it impossible to sit in a class and learn, but he is able to learn outside, I think we really need to come out of that necessity that the student should learn sit in my class and learn from me. As long as he's making available himself for discussions and and evaluations, which you have determined. We also need to redesign the evaluation system. We can't, there is this joke which I keep referring to, where all kinds of animals are appearing for a test, and they are all going to be tested for climbing a tree. And there is a monkey, there is a fish, there is a goat, and so on and so forth. I think this is something which we really want to re-examine and see what is the group of animals we have in front of us, and can I have a different examination for each of these animals, because these animals are going to survive in the wildlife tomorrow. They're going to save themselves, they're going to find their food, they're going to and the animals we are talking about are even smarter than the animals in the cartoon. So they are going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and they know no matter what you do. I think some of them will innovate, some of them will show the path. So it's very, very important to recognize and allow that spark in the student to survive and if possible, be nurtured. And that's what is most important for a teacher to recognize.